Welcome back to Living with a Classic and a very different video today. First of all, I'm out in the woods. Pretty nice day. It's a little cold still. Spring is not fully here yet. We had snow yesterday, but at least the sun is sort of out. And usually on this channel, I focus mostly on old Jags and sometimes the old Range Rover that we have. However, today I have something very different. I picked up a very cheap car. It's a running and driving car for 500 bucks. And here it is behind me. It says 1996 SAAB 900S. And here it is in all its glory in the sun. And well, it's definitely not a perfect car, but to get a running driving car for 500 bucks, that is really not bad. So I'll get into a little bit later why I picked this up, but the main reason is it has a tow hitch on the back, but we'll get more into details of that later. Let's first just have a look around it. And what you can see is it's not the base model, but it's not, a high-end model. It's sort of in between, and it's sort of what I was looking for. I was looking for a cheap car with a tow bar that had MOT, that did not have a big engine, but still not a tiny engine. This is a 2-liter engine, 4-cylinder, and I wanted a manual transmission, just make it simple and have less things to break down. And this is what I could find pretty locally. I also didn't want to travel too far, and it seems to be pretty all right. Haven't driven it much. Drove it home, and then I did some errands in it, and that's about it. But so far it's been working well. We can have a look at it. You see here we have the door cards. Nothing's really broken, anything. It's a little scuffed. I haven't cleaned everything up. I do want to clean it up. Even if it's a very cheap car, I'm still going to clean it up. Seats are, I think they're kind of like a crushed velour or something. They're all right. There's some, some marks here where it's worn through, or some stains, but maybe I'll do something about that. But also, for 500 bucks, it doesn't really matter. They're comfortable. You can sit in them nicely. All the gauges work. We can have a look at that in a bit. The heater works, and that's sort of what you can expect. It does have electric windows. They do all work. It does have an electric glass sunroof, which doesn't work, but I just think it's actually stuck. So when I hit the button, I can hear like a motor somewhere, like clicking and trying to move it, but I think it's just stuck, and I think for now I'm going to leave it that way. At least it's not leaking, so that's a good thing. It has rear seats here, pretty normal. They're in pretty good condition, actually. They're nice and soft. That's the good thing about these fabric seats. They're very, very comfortable, and the rear seats do fold down. So that is one nice thing about this. It's not in a state, but it's still quite a roomy car. To get into the back, you have a remote to unlock the back. And once again, I haven't cleaned everything up or anything at all. I just take out, there was a bunch of wheels in here because it did come with winter tires. I live in Sweden, so you need that. So it's on the summer tires at the moment, which there's tread left on them. I don't know how old they are or anything, but really, at least it has tires on it, and there's nothing wrong with them. But the winter tires were pretty good. And then under here, there's just, normal space saver and all of that. But the rear seats do fold down, so there is quite a bit of space of hauling stuff. And that is one of the reasons I picked this thing up, because every single summer we do a lot of work on the farm, renovating things, and that means picking up lumber. And where I live, getting it delivered is quite expensive. So being able to actually just put lumber and stuff in this thing, which I do not want to do in any of the Jags, don't really want to do in the Range Rover either. So this, it's turned into just to be able to pick up stuff. But we'll get back to the tow hook thing a little bit later. And as I said, I haven't cleaned it up or anything yet. So there's some algae and stuff here. Clear coat is peeling back here. But it's not too bad. What can you expect for a car from 1996 for 500 bucks? There is some rust in certain areas, but it's nice and solid underneath. It does have an MOT, it's inspected. There is some rust here, which is very common. Usually all of the rear wheel arches and all SAABs rust for some reason, but there's some here, and as you can see, there's bubbling in the bottom of the door. This one's the worst. But I don't know, maybe I'll do something about that. Just, you know, rust convert it and get some paint. Not really sure. I mean, what are you going to do for a $500 car? If it starts, stops, and you know, what else can you expect? Let's have a look at the engine. It is SAAB's own design. It is a gasoline engine, petrol. It's a 2-liter 4-cylinder, and here it is. Doesn't look like too much, but it has a pretty good service history. It was recently serviced. It recently had a new clutch, so that is one reason I thought it was a good buy. Because I mean, just doing the clutch is probably going to cost what I paid for the car. All the fluids look pretty clean, but yeah, this looks quite rusty in here. But there are no leaks or anything up here. There's a slight exhaust leak in the back, which we can get to in a little bit. But the back half of the exhaust is pretty much new, so it just seems like it's not put together correctly. But I'll have a look at that. Otherwise, just some light welding on the exhaust, and that should be fine. And that recently had a service. Oil filter down there. I mean, that looks pretty nice and clean. And you know, battery terminal's a little dirty. I will clean that up. And I think I'll just give it a nice clean in here. I'm not going to do anything special, but I still wanted to be a little bit nice just in case it does break down. I don't want to have to get too dirty cleaning things off, but once again, it's a $500 car. What do you expect? But I think we should at least start it up so you guys can hear it. It does have an immobilizer, so you need to lock it and unlock it, and then you have one attempt to start it. Being a SAAB, the ignition switch is down here, which is a little bit different. So instead of having a traditional steering lock, a SAAB, you lock it in reverse if it's a manual transmission, and that basically, you know, prevents you from stealing the car because you can't ever get it out. This thing is a little bit, I'm gonna wiggle it a little bit to get the steering lock or the gear shift lock off. It's kind of hard to do one-handed. There we go. So it's off, on, all the warning lights come on, put in neutral. Let's see if it fires up. And yes, it does. And it's just warning me that the lights are on, door is open, park brakes on. This is info display. And I haven't read the manual or anything. I didn't get a manual for the car, but it says test brake lights in Swedish. So if you press the brakes, that passes, and then it's telling me to fill up with windshield wiper fluid. Can clear that, and then there's a small little info display here, which the S model got. The base models did not get that. So it's distance to empty, 232 kilometers, average fuel consumption, and the outside thermometer, which doesn't seem to be working. It just always shows these dots. And then there's another little party trick that the SAABs have, which is, it's supposed to be a fighter jet sort of thing, because if you don't know the history about SAAB, look it up. It's a quite fascinating car company, but they made fighter jets as well, and they still do, I believe. So if you're driving at night, and especially, you know, in rural Sweden, in the middle of nowhere, there are no lights or anything, you want the least amount of light in the cabin so you see the road the best. So what you will do is, if you hit black panel, it will turn off all the lights except the one for speedometer. It will turn off the other dials as well, and they will only come on in case, you know, the car has an issue or something. So I can basically show you what it looks like now during the day. So have a look at those gauges. You see that fuel gauge went to 0, the RPM went down, and it's only the speedometer that will be working now if you're driving. You hit that button again, and they all pop back up. It's a weird little SAAB quirk there, but let's just go out and listen to the engine. And as you can hear, it sounds pretty normal. No real weird sounds coming from, there's a timing chain on it. So that's also a good thing. Doesn't mean you have a timing belt you need to replace. The only thing that's a tiny bit noisy is there's either an idler in there or one for the power steering pump, but it's not squealing or anything, so I think we're good to go for now. But how about we go for a little test drive? Okay, we're out of the woods now, and let's take this thing for a little bit of test drive, and let's talk about the main reason why I picked it up, because there are a lot of other cars on the channel. Don't really need another car. One of the reasons I talked about before is I kind of want somebody to be able to haul like lumber things and stuff, and that it has a tow hitch. So the reason for the tow hitch is we live out in the country, as you may know. We have a farm. My wife has horses. When you have horses, you have a horse trailer, and we don't really go anywhere with the horses. She used to trailer them a lot more before when she did competitions and things. Doesn't really do that anymore. However, horses can still get sick, and when they get sick, you take them to the vet, and they need to travel in a trailer. It's a lot cheaper usually to take them to a clinic than to have the vet come out to you. But you may be thinking, you have that big Range Rover, why don't you tow with that? Well, that was the plan. However, driver's licenses in Sweden are kind of interesting. I think they're the same pretty much in all of Europe. When you get a normal so-called B driver's license, which is just a regular license to be able to drive a car, you are allowed to tow. But the maximum weight of the car plus the trailer and what the trailer is legally allowed to be filled with, so the total weight cannot exceed 3,500 kilos. If it does, you will need an additional license, a towing license basically. And that is usually not a problem. I have plans on getting one because I need one to be able to tow a large car trailer with a big car like a big Jag. That's a big heavy thing. However, due to the COVID situation, there is an issue with getting licenses at the moment. There is a long wait, and it would be about a 6-month wait to get that license. And that's not really a good thing where you have horses that may get sick. And it's also, we're coming up to summer here. We are always renovating stuff on a farm. There's always something to do. There's always lumber and things to pick up for fences and other things, and I want to finish the ceiling off in the workshop. So and I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I can't get one of these licenses for another 6 months or so. Well, let's see if I can pick up a car really cheaply. And I was sort of thinking, okay, if I can get something for about $500 that will last through the summer, then that's great. Because not only having to go pick up the horses, which if we're lucky, we won't have to take them anywhere, and that will all be fine. No one will get sick. However, picking up lumber, things like that, where I live, it's quite expensive to get those things delivered. So, if this thing does, 5 trips to the lumber yard or something with the horse trailer that we have, which we already have, so it's free to use, then the car has basically paid for itself in what it would cost to ship things to my house. So that is the reason. You might think it's sort of a little bit crazy, but that's sort of the reason. And I'm hoping that at the end of this, if I don't need it anymore, it's a $500 car. It probably hasn't depreciated that much, and in September it's time to inspect it again. So if it passes, then I should be able to sell it again for probably the same what I paid for it, or if not, I probably wouldn't lose that much on it. So let's get back to the SAAB itself and sort of the driving experience. Well, like I said, it's a $500 car. There's some rattles and things. I think most of it is the mount for the gear knob or the back of the engine, because there's sort of a little bit of movement there sometimes, but it goes through the gears nicely. It's a 5-speed manual. It goes up to temperature nice, so the thermostat works, all the heat and stuff works, and that's sort of what can you expect for a car. You want heat to work. If you live somewhere warm, you're lucky it has AC, then you want that to work. You want the windows to work, you want the brakes to feel fine, and you want it to be safe. That's really all you can expect. As you might saw on earlier, it's missing a radio, which not a big deal. I've actually ordered the cheapest radio I could find on Amazon that had Bluetooth. It's like $25 or something. It's on its way. It should be here in a week or so. So I'll fit that and a blanking panel, and that will be fine. You're not going to spend big sums of money when it comes to a $500 car. It does drive really well. Sometimes if you shift it too quickly into third, there's a slight little crunch there from a sinker or something, but we haven't really talked about the mileage yet. It has about 331,000 kilometers, which off the top of my head, I believe is around 200,000 miles. I'll have to look that up, but it's not low mileage, but it's not insane high mileage for a car of this age. And also, it's not a turbocharged car. It's a pretty simple 4-cylinder engine. It should hopefully last. The 4-cylinder engine in the SAABs here actually do have a slight of a British heritage. So the block and the tooling, I believe, goes back to a Triumph engine that SAAB bought sometime in the 70s or 80s, or bought the license to use, and they just kept developing it. I think they used it up until pretty much almost the end of SAAB. So it's a 4-cylinder, and I think you could get a twin overhead cam or a single overhead cam depending on the years. This one, I believe, is a double overhead cam, but I actually don't really know. If you know, please let me know in the comments down below. I haven't really checked. It's about 128 horsepower, I believe, in this version, and it's, you know, it's hard to tell if it still has any of its power left. However, it's nice and torquey, and that's what you need if you want to tow something. It's good with manual transmission and a torquey engine, and it should be fine. I mean, once again, there's not that much you can expect from it. Like I said, you want heat and stuff to work, you want windshield wipers and things to work, and yeah, you want it to be pretty safe. And a SAAB, at least, is a reasonably safe car. And this thing does have some rust in places, but it's not structural rust, and it is inspected, so it should be pretty fine. So here's what I'm sort of wondering a little bit more. I want to maybe do some other things with this car, and I thought maybe it could be an experimental car on the channel, because sometimes there's some things that I maybe want to try, or maybe that you want me to try. You can ask for that in the comments down below, that I don't want to do to, you know, the cars I have that I cherish. But this one, maybe we could try some things. Maybe we could try some home bodywork things on the rust and things, do some cheap bodywork on it if you would like to see that. The hood, the clear coat is basically gone on it. The previous owners just scraped it off, so it's just the base coat at the moment. So maybe we could sand that down a little bit, spray it, and put some clear coat on it, see what that looks like. I don't know, try some other little fun experiments. Let me know if there's something like that you would like to see on the channel down below. Now you see there, if I shift a little bit slower into third, I don't get that crunching. So probably synchro or something, but I mean, it is working fine. Took it out on the highway earlier today, and you know what? It kept up with traffic. Wasn't too bad with the wind noise, no vibrations or anything, and it feels nice and firm in the driveline. So honestly, I am pretty impressed with what you can pick up for 500 bucks. So in conclusion, here is my new $500 beater. I kind of forgot to mention that before. There's something nice about having a car that you don't have to, you know, be careful with. I mean, this is maybe pretty much an extreme case. I mean, you can park the thing anywhere, it doesn't matter. Someone could, I mean, really, whatever happens to it, it doesn't really matter. But sometimes that's sort of nice, you know. I don't really like to take any of the Jags I have on channel on any dirt roads or anything like that, but here, doesn't matter. We drove out into the woods on a nice dirt road. That was fun. And I mean, whatever happens to it, every single mile or kilometer you drive is free. I mean, just a regular car that you maybe buy, if you buy a new car, just a monthly payment in, you know, 1 month or maybe 2 months is what you pay for this whole car. So if you even use this for commuting for a month or so to work, after that, it's paid for. It's basically a free car, and that is a pretty cool thing. There, I think there were some articles years ago I used to read, I forgot where it was, but it was all about bangernomics, which, you know, picking up really cheap cars and almost driving them into the ground. I mean, you still service them and things, and just, you know, not being picky, but just trying to find a good, reliable car that for no money at all, and then when that's worn out, get another one. That's not something I'm really planning on doing. However, something like this would be a pretty good car to use for Bang & Olufsen. It's pretty comfortable, goes well, everything works, it's very cheap. And especially where I live, parts availability for these are so extensive. I can go anywhere and get parts, and they're dirt cheap. So that's also a thing. If you're going to pick up a very cheap car, make sure that the parts for it are cheap if you plan on using it. So for instance, here I just looked up, you can get a complete service kit for this car with spark plugs and everything, and a pretty decent oil and everything from a SAAB specialist for like 70-80 bucks, and you have a complete service tune up for the engine. I mean, that is dirt cheap. So that's another thing to think about if you are out looking to do what I've done here, just to pick up a really cheap car if you plan on keeping it long term. You know, I'm not going to service this at the moment. It has a pretty fresh service. The oil is all right. It was less than a year ago. Looks nice and clean on the dipstick. But if this ends up being something I keep a little bit longer on the channel, of course, it will get a service. Anyways, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. And let me know what you think of this old $500 SAAB down in the comments below. Anyways, until next time, I'm Adam, and this was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.